The royal palace was quiet that morning. Sunlight came through the tall glass windows, shining on the white marble floor. Guards in silver armor stood straight as the sound of footsteps echoed in the great hall. Commander Ethan Cole walked down the center path toward the throne. His dark uniform carried the marks of many battles, and his boots left faint dust from distant worlds. At the end of the hall sat Empress Leora on a throne made of shining stone. Her long robe trailed down the steps, and her presence filled the air like thunder. Everyone around her bowed deeply. Ethan stopped, dropped to one knee, and waited for her to speak. She looked down at him with calm eyes. "Commander Ethan Cole of the Imperial Fleet," she said. Her voice was smooth, but strong. "You have served the Empire with great honor. You have brought peace to the outer provinces and saved thousands of lives. You have earned the right to stand among the finest of our people." Ethan kept his eyes on the polished floor. "I am only doing my duty, Your Majesty." The Empress leaned forward slightly. "But service such as yours deserves more than medals. The Empire rewards those who protect it with more than titles." The great hall was silent. The air felt heavy. Then she said the words that would change his life forever. "As ruler of this empire, I order that you take my daughter, Princess Helena, as your wife." The words struck like a shockwave. Even the guards, trained never to react, moved ever so slightly. Ethan's head lifted and his eyes widened. The courtiers glanced at one another, unsure if they had heard correctly. "Your Majesty," Ethan said carefully, "I am honored, but I am not of noble blood. I am a man of the fleet, not the court. I do not deserve such a gift." The Empress's expression did not soften. "This is not for you to weigh or question. Empire has chosen you because you understand loyalty, not ambition. My daughter needs a man who sees beyond the crown." Ethan wanted to protest again, but her tone told him there was no room for refusal. Her order was absolute. Everyone knew that when Empress Leora spoke, her word became law. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said at last, voice steady though his heart beat fast. "As you command." The Empress nodded once. Her eyes softened for a moment, but only for a heartbeat. "You are dismissed, Commander. Preparations for the joining will begin at once." Ethan rose, bowed deeply, and turned to leave. The murmurs of the court followed him as he walked back down the endless hall. He could feel every eye on his back. He had faced enemy ships, traitors, and storms among the stars, but nothing had ever made his hands tremble like this. Outside the throne room, the sunlight felt too bright. The gardens smelled of roses and warm air, but his thoughts were sharp and uneasy. He had been given honors before, but never something that felt like a trap wrapped in gold. He walked past the fountains, trying to calm his racing thoughts. The Princess Helena, he had seen her once from afar, during a public ceremony. She had seemed graceful but distant, like a star that could be seen but never touched. He could not imagine her agreeing to this order any more than he had. That evening, in his private quarters, Ethan sat by the window overlooking the great city. The towers of Solaria stretched to the sky, glowing in shades of gold and silver as the sun set. Ships passed overhead, their engines leaving trails of blue light. He thought of his years in service, eyed the battles, the narrow escapes, the crewmates he had lost. In all that time, he had believed that his life would be simple duty, command, and perhaps an old age spent teaching young officers. A royal marriage had never crossed his mind. He poured himself a glass of water and took a slow sip. Somewhere inside the palace, Princess Helena was likely receiving the same news. He wondered what she would think of him, an ordinary soldier chosen by her powerful mother. Night settled across the city. The lights of the palace twinkled like stars reflected in the river below. Ethan rested his hands on the railing and looked toward the distant horizon. The Empress's word was law. Refusal was impossible, yet something deeper stirred in him, a faint current of curiosity. Maybe, just maybe, there was purpose behind the strange order. Perhaps the Empress saw something neither he nor her daughter could yet see. He took a deep breath. Whatever awaited him, he would face it as he always had, with honor, with courage, and without fear. And deep within the halls of the palace, where light and music never truly slept, the future Empress Stuba Helena was quietly watching the same stars, thinking the very same thought. The next morning, the palace buzzed with quiet excitement. Servants moved quickly through the halls, carrying flowers, fabrics, and gold ornaments. Everyone whispered about the Empress's command from the day before. Some spoke with awe, others with disbelief. No one had ever heard of a royal marriage arranged so suddenly between a princess and a soldier. Commander Ethan Cole had been given new quarters near the royal gardens. There were beautiful rooms with tall windows and polished floors, but they felt like a cage. He looked out at the shining fountains and wondered if this was what reward felt like. Every sound from outside reminded him of the life he had known before, simple, clear, and free. Now everything seemed slow and uncertain. There was a knock at the door. A soft voice spoke. "Commander Cole, Her Highness, requests your presence in the garden." Ethan took a breath. This would be his first real meeting with Princess Helena. He had seen her from afar, but never spoken to her. He straightened his jacket, checked his reflection once, and stepped outside. The royal gardens stretched across acres of land. Roses bloomed in rows, and gentle streams ran under stone bridges. The princess stood near one of the fountains, a white dress flowing like water around her. She turned her head as he approached. "So," she said in a calm voice, "you are the man my mother has chosen for me." Her tone was polite but cool. Ethan bowed slightly. "Yes, Your Highness. I was not expecting such an honor." She studied his face. "Nor was I expecting such a surprise," she said. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Tell me, Commander, do you often obey orders without question?" "Only when they come from the throne," he answered with a faint smile. "And only because saying no is not healthy for anyone who values his life." Her lips curved just a little, almost a smile. "You speak honestly?" "That is rare here." "I have found that honesty saves time," he said. "I am a soldier, not a politician." For a moment they stood silently. The wind rustled the leaves. The princess turned back to the fountain. "You do not want this marriage, do you?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at the water. It was not something I dreamed of, but it is not my place to refuse. "The Empress's word is law." She gave a small, bitter laugh. "Yes, always the law. Even for me." Ethan looked up at her then. In her voice he heard something he did not expect: loneliness. For a woman surrounded by wealth and power, she sounded trapped. In that instant he realized they were both prisoners of duty, bound by the same command. "I will not make this harder for you," he said quietly. "Whatever you need me to be, I will be that." She turned to face him. Her eyes softened a little. "And if I ask you to speak to me not as a princess, but as a woman, then I will try to be a man worth speaking to," he said. And for the first time her laughter came freely, light and warm. They began to walk along the path beside the fountains. She told him about her studies, her duties, her love of music. He spoke of his voyages and the strange worlds he had seen. Slowly, the stiffness between them faded. When evening came, they stood at the edge of the garden watching the sky turn gold. Helena looked up. "Do you think this is fate?" "I don't know," Ethan said. "I stopped believing in fate after my first battle. But I do believe that every road leads somewhere, even the ones we don't choose." She nodded. "Maybe this one leads to peace." A servant approached and bowed. "Your Highness, Your Majesty calls for you." Helena sighed. "Of course. The Royal Council never sleeps." She faced Ethan one more time. "Thank you for being honest with me. We'll find that here. Truth is often the rarest jewel." He smiled. "I've never been good at hiding things, Your Highness." As she walked away, her white gown brushed against the grass. Ethan watched her until she disappeared into the hall. For the first time since the order was given, he felt something other than confusion. He felt respect, maybe even admiration. That night, the city shimmered under silver light. Ethan sat by the window again, thinking of the princess's quiet laughter. He wondered what kind of queen she would become one day. In her chamber across the palace, Helena sat by her mirror, thinking of the soldier who had spoken to her not as a servant or subject, but as an equal. For the first time in her life, she felt that her mother's command might not be a curse. And somewhere beyond those marble walls, under the wide and endless stars, something invisible and gentle began to grow between them. Something neither power nor law could name. Days passed, inside the shining palace like a slow dream. The air was filled with music, talk, and the smell of flowers as servants prepared for the great wedding. Yet beneath the calm surface, something dark was moving. Many nobles were unhappy with the Empress's order. Some whispered that a soldier like Ethan Cole did not deserve the hand of a royal princess. Others feared that this marriage would give the military too much power in the Empire. Commander Ethan sensed the unease during every meeting and dinner. Smiles were too thin, and words were smooth but sharp underneath. Even so, he did his duty, staying close to Princess Helena when she appeared in public. Her manner toward him was changing. She no longer spoke coldly. She asked him questions about his life, his battles, and what it felt like to see the stars from the deck of a ship. One evening, they stood on a balcony overlooking the golden city lights. The sky was deep blue, full of quiet stars. "Do you miss your ship?" Helena asked softly. "Every day," Ethan said. "Out there, life is simple. You know who the enemy is. You know what must be done. Here everything is quiet, but I feel more danger than ever." She nodded. "You see the truth? Court life is full of smiling knives. My mother calls it the Game of Thrones. But she believes this marriage will unite the Empire. She believes you and I can keep the peace." Ethan looked at her and saw the weight she carried. The crown was not just gold. It was a chain. He wished for her sake that the world were simpler. The next morning, a message spread across the palace like fire. Someone had tried to poison the Empress. The royal guard found a servant unconscious near the kitchen. A single cup of golden wine had been touched. The Empress had survived only because she had chosen not to drink it that night. The court was thrown into chaos. Noble houses accused one another and guards filled the halls. Ethan rushed to the throne room, finding Helena standing beside her mother. The Empress's face was hard as stone, but her voice was calm. "There is a traitor among us," she said. "Find them." Ethan bowed. "Your Majesty, let me handle the investigation. The safety of this palace is my duty." Helena watched him closely as he moved through the halls later, questioning servants, soldiers, and ministers. Whispers followed him wherever he went. Some said he was the traitor's target. Others said he might be part of it. He ignored them all. Late that night, while walking through the eastern corridor, Ethan noticed a strange mark on one of the tall vases. A thin streak of gray dust ran down the side, like ash from a burned letter. He crouched to look closer and saw faint footprints on the marble floor. They led to the servant quarters. He followed quietly, his hand resting on the small blaster at his side. The corridors grew darker. He heard voices around the corner. Two men were talking in low tones. "Tomorrow," one said. During the engagement banquet, the explosion will end both of them at once. Ethan lifted his weapon and stepped out. "Not tomorrow," he said. The two men froze. One tried to draw a blade, but Ethan fired a stun shot before it left the sheath. The second man ran, but guards came rushing at the sound. Within moments, the traitors were taken away. When Helena heard what had happened, she went to find him. He stood in the courtyard under the moonlight, his uniform torn at the shoulder, his face calm. "You saved us again," she said. "Many times will you risk your life for this empire?" "As many as needed," he said. "It is what I was sworn to do." She looked at him sadly. "You are brave, but bravery alone cannot save us from what is coming. Whoever sent those men will not stop." "I know," he said. "But I will never stop either." She reached for his hand, surprising them both. Her grip was gentle, yet strong. "Then we stand together," she said. At that moment, the Empress appeared at her chamber window above them, watching in silence. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. She had chosen well. The next few days were tense but calm on the surface. The traitors were questioned, but they gave little information before they vanished mysteriously from the dungeons. Rumors grew like vines around the palace walls. Still, the wedding preparations continued. Each night, Helena and Ethan met quietly in the garden. Their words became softer, their silences more meaningful. He began to see her not as a princess, but as a woman of courage and deep thought. She, in turn, saw in him not just a soldier, but a protector with the heart of a leader. Above them, the stars burned brighter than ever, as if they too were watching the story unfold. Both of them knew danger had not passed. The Empire's peace was fragile, yet for that moment, under the calm night air, they felt a stronger truth. Whatever the battles ahead, neither of them would face them alone. The day of the grand engagement came with bright skies and the sound of bells across the city. Every street was lined with banners of gold and white. Crowds filled the squares, shouting the names of Princess Helena and Commander Ethan Cole. Inside the palace, the halls were filled with the glow of candles and soft music. Everyone was waiting for the start of the ceremony that would unite the royal family with the people as hero. Ethan stood in his new uniform at the side of the hall. The jacket carried the Empress's crest, and his boots shined like glass. Yet even with all the decorations and cheers, his heart was uneasy. He could feel that the piece was too thin, like glass about to break. Helena entered the room with her mother beside her. She wore a silver dress, simple but elegant. Her hair shimmered in the light, and her eyes searched the crowd until they landed on Ethan. For a brief second, their eyes met, and the noise around them faded. She smiled softly, and he felt his chest steady. The Empress motioned for silence. Her voice filled the hall. "Today we join duty with destiny. My daughter will stand beside the man who has protected this empire with courage and honor." Ethan bowed. But as he straightened, a flicker of movement caught his eye near the far balcony. A shadow had slipped through one of the side doors. He did not move at once. Instead, he let his eyes follow quietly. There was something wrong. The figure paused by the balcony curtains, hand lifting slightly like a signal. A sudden sense of danger ran through Ethan's mind like a cold wind. He stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "forgive me, but I need to check something." Before anyone could reply, a thunderous sound tore through the hall. A blast ripped one of the side walls open. Smoke and fire filled the air. People screamed and ran in all directions. Guards drew their weapons and rushed to the Empress and her daughter. Through the chaos, Ethan saw another shadow moving toward the throne with a knife drawn. Without thinking, he leaped across the broken marble, knocking the assassin aside just in time. The blade cut his arm, but not deep enough to stop him. The guards caught the man, covering him before he could strike again. Helena's voice cried out, "Ethan!" She ran to him as smoke swirled around them. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he said, grabbing her hand. "We need to get you to safety." The Empress's guards surrounded her as she was led toward the escape corridor. Ethan stayed close beside Helena, his arm bleeding, his eyes scanning every corner. In the distance, shouts echoed as fire spread through the palace wings. It was not only one attack, it was an organized strike. When they reached the safe chamber deep underground, the Empress stood waiting with a small group of loyal advisors. Her face was pale, but her voice remained calm. "The loyal guard reports heavy loss," she said. This was planned carefully. "The rebels are trying to take the city." Ethan looked at her, his hand pressed against his arm. "We must get you to the command center, Your Majesty. The troops will need your order." Helena stepped between them. "Mother, you cannot go to the front line. Not now. Let me take charge of the defense. People will listen if I stand beside Commander Cole." The Empress hesitated. Her eyes moved from her daughter to the soldier who had risked everything for her. For a long time, she said nothing. Then slowly she nodded. "Very well. Take the guard and hold the palace." "We'll send word to the commanders. If this day must be written in history, it will not be as our fall." Ethan turned to Helena. "Stay close to me at all times. Promise me that." She gave him a strong look that reminded him of her mother. "You stay close to me, Commander." They left the chamber with 50 soldiers behind them. Outside, the palace grounds were filled with smoke. Fires burned across the city's skyline. From the upper terraces, they could see rebels moving through the streets, carrying banners of their own. Ethan shouted orders to the guards. They set up defense lines across the palace gates. Helena picked up a fallen staff and used it to direct their forces with surprising control. She stood tall, her silver dress torn and blackened by ash, calling commands with a clear voice. "Hold the line," Ethan said to his troops. "We fight for the Empress and for the people." The rebels charged. The clash of steel filled the air. Firelight danced across armor as fighting spread through the gardens. Ethan moved like a whirlwind, guarding Helena's side again and again. She fought too, striking with a blade she had taken from a fallen guard. Her courage burned brighter than any crown. After long hours, the palace bells rang again, this time as a signal of victory. The rebels began to retreat, their ranks broken. Soldiers cheered, and the sound echoed through the night. When the noise faded, Ethan and Helena stood side by side among the broken columns. Smoke rose around them, but the stars above were still visible. She turned to him. "We stopped them today, but they will come again." He nodded. "Then we will stop them again together." She smiled faintly. "You make it sound easy." "Nothing worth doing is ever easy," he said. In the distance, the first light of dawn touched the sky. The palace was scarred, but still standing. The Empress's rule was not broken. And where fear had once lived, there was now something stronger. The start of hope, born from fire. Smoke still hung over the city when dawn finally came. The battle had left the palace in ruins. Stone walls were cracked, and gardens once filled with roses were now covered in ashes. The sound of hammers and shovels filled the air as workers began to rebuild. Soldiers stood guard at every gate, tired but proud. The Empress had survived, and the rebellion had been crushed, but the cost was heavy. Ethan Cole stood on the terrace overlooking the city. His uniform was torn and burned, his right arm wrapped in white cloth. He watched the rising sun turn the sky gold and pink. Ow. Behind him, he heard footsteps. Princess Helena walked toward him, her silver cloak brushing the stone. "We held the palace," she said softly. "The people fought with us. They will not forget this day. They will not forget your courage either," he said. She shook her head. "It was not courage. It was fear that pushed me forward. I could not watch everything my mother built come crashing down." Ethan turned to her. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what must be done even when you are afraid. You saved your people, Princess." She looked out over the city, her eyes filled with sadness and pride. "So many are gone. So many families will mourn. They will rebuild," he said. "You gave them strength. The Empire is not broken." Just then, a messenger ran up the steps and bowed. "Commander Cole, the Empress requests both of you in the throne room." They followed the messenger through the long marble corridors. The once bright walls were darkened by smoke. Guards saluted as they passed. When they reached the throne room, the Empress sat waiting. She looked weaker than before, her face pale, but her eyes still controlled the room. "My children," she said when they entered. Ethan bowed deeply. Helena stepped forward and took her mother's hand. "The city is safe now, Mother. The last of the rebel ships have been seized." The Empress nodded slowly. "You both have done what I could not. You've led with heart." She looked at Ethan. "You were once only my soldier. Now you are the savior of this empire." Ethan lowered his head. "I only did my duty, Your Majesty." The Empress smiled faintly. "Duty, yes, but also love." She looked at Helena. "You have seen what leadership truly means. I am proud of you." Her voice grew quiet. "My time is ending. The wound I took during the battle is worse than I told anyone. Soon this throne will need another. The Empire must not wait." Helena froze. "Mother, no, you cannot leave us now." The Empress placed her hand on her daughter's cheek. "There is no fear in it, my dear. Every ruler must pass, so another may rise. The people already look to you. Tomorrow, you shall take the crown." Tears filled Helena's eyes. "I am not ready. You are ready," the Empress said firmly. "You proved it when you faced the fire. You will rule with both mind and heart. And Ethan will stand beside you, not only as a husband, but as a guardian to this realm." Ethan knelt and took her hand. "I will serve her as I have served you, until my final breath." The Empress nodded with peace in her eyes, "and my empire will live on." Within days, the great coronation took place. Bells rang across the city once again, this time not for war, but for hope. The palace was decorated with the colors of dawn, symbols of a new era. People from distant provinces came to witness it. Helena walked down the long hall dressed in white, her steps calm yet full of purpose. Ethan stood waiting beside the high priest, dressed in the uniform she had asked him to wear, still marked with the signs of battle. When the crown touched her head, the crowd bowed low and shouted her name. Ethan took her hand. She turned and faced the people, her voice rising through the grand hall. "We have seen darkness and loss," she said, "but from the ashes we will build again. The empire belongs not to one throne or one family, it belongs to every heart that stands for peace." The people cheered. The sound rolled through every street, through every home, until the city shook with joy. That night, when the lights of celebration faded, Helena and Ethan stood once more on the palace balcony. The stars shone above the quiet city. She rested her head lightly against his shoulder. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "if my mother planned all of this? The marriage, the battle, everything?" Ethan smiled gently. "If she did, then she was wiser than all of us." Helena sighed. "I will miss her every day. She will live in our choices," he said. "In how we treat our people, in how we protect each other." She looked up at him. "And what of you, Commander Cole? Do you still think of returning to the stars?" He took her hand. "My home is wherever you are." The night wind brushed past them. The city lights shimmered like tiny stars below. For the first time, Helena felt truly free, not as a princess, not as a daughter, but as a queen standing beside the man who had fought for her, believed in her, and loved her. As dawn began to rise again, their joined hands caught the first light of morning, bright and warm. And in that light began a new age, one born from duty, strength, and love that would outlast every shadow of war.